Also identifying the 6 gems and their characteristics and how it relates to the progression of dementia. And then if we have enough time, we will definitely go through some of the scenarios. We may not make it to that because there's a lot of information for each of the gems. So I'm just going to dive right in. The chat box is active. So if you have any questions or you want to share anything, or if I ask a question, you know, you're more than welcome to add your question to the chat box. I know that Mary is keeping an eye on it, and I will answer all of your questions and try to get to each and every one of them. So to get started, I just want to do a very short overview of dementia and, you know, the types of dementias. If you've taken the Dementia Live training, then you remember this umbrella where dementia is the overarching category. And then we have the different types of dementia, progressive dementias like Alzheimer's, which are the ones that we are most familiar with. And those are the ones that get worse over time. With Alzheimer's disease, you know, that's kind of, we lose what we learned last first and pretty much go backwards in times. For the positive approach to care, it focuses also on the progressive dementia. We have the other dementias that are, you know, what we consider to be like curable dementias, who are caused by some other underlying conditions, like maybe diabetes or alcohol use or some type of imbalance in the body that normally if you go into the hospital and you get some treatment, you can kind of reverse that dementia, so to speak. And then you have some of the non-progressive dementia that come from like a traumatic brain injury or a stroke or, you know, something like that, where only one part of the brain is impacted, and wherever that person is at that point is where they stay. So this is, I'm not going to go through all of this for the sake of time, but the main thing to know about dementia, so, you know, it requires that, you know, at least 2 parts of the brain are dying. If it's progressive, it keeps changing and it's getting worse. And it's not curable or fixable if it's chronic, and it typically ends in the loss of life as, you know, the damage to the brain cells continue and the parts of the brain continue to die. I know we learned in the Dementia Live training, apraxia, which is that kind of like in the very end where you start, the person needs assistance with all of their activities and they lose the ability to speak and things like that. And eventually it impacts the centers of the brain that regulate the breathing and you swallowing, and then the person will pass away. So for the models of dementia progression, I want to go over these because it sets the kind of the groundwork for the development of the GEM dementia progression theory. So we have the one that a lot of people are familiar with, the early, middle, late. I know we teach this when we do Dementia Live, where the early stage is at the very beginning of the diagnosis, where the person is still independent, but they might start to notice some issues with their memory. They start to rely on more coping techniques like Post-it notes and things like that, but they're still able to live on their own. And you have the middle stage where the person is unable to live independently. They might need more assistance, and they start to see more significant impacts on their activities of daily living. And then late stage, when the person requires lots of care and are pretty much dependent on their caregiver, whether it be a family caregiver or a professional caregiver. So the global deterioration stage, that was one piece of one type of scale that was used to characterize the progression of dementia. It's a number-based scale, with 1 being the most functional, most independent, and stage 7 being the end of life. One of the things with this scale that TIPA really didn't care for was that it focuses only on loss. It's not really too much focus on what the person still can do. It only talks about what they're losing at each stage. Alternatively, you have the Allen cognitive levels, which focus on, you know, what the person still can do. And that was the main basis for the GEMS system of characterizing the progression of dementia. So with the Allen cognitive levels, you have the 6 stages, with 6 being the highest level of functioning and 1 being the lowest. And at each stage, it describes the person's abilities and what they are still interested in at that time. When Teepa Snow began to develop the system of the GEMS, she wanted to get away from using a number. I think when we hear numbers, we automatically will rank one as being better than the other. And she really wanted to emphasize that, we're still dealing with people. We don't want to label them as a number or label them as a stage. We still want to recognize them for who they are, and that they're still our loved ones, and that they still can do things. They may have some challenges, but they're still unique and valuable.
Jen,
Sure.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely.
We've had a question, and someone's asking if we're going to make these PowerPoint slides available to them. Will you be able to do that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
So I want to talk about one of the ways what we can do to treat dementia. We know that it's not curable, but if we have knowledge and we build our skills, we learn more about how it works. We learn more about how to care for someone who's living with dementia, and we maintain flexibility and practice support and have compassion. We can improve the quality of life not only for ourselves as caregivers, but also for the person who is living with dementia. So again, just a little bit more information on the GEM stages model. It's occupational therapy based type of theory, and it focuses on, improving the environment, changing the environment, because sometimes, just like with students, some students perform in a better environment. Some people learn in different ways. I learn better doing things hands-on rather than in a lecture. And it's the same when you're working with or caring for someone who has a dementia. Everyone has a different environment that's going to work the best for them, depending on where they are. So it's the right care so that each person can shine, focusing on the abilities of what they can do, and us as the caregivers making the adjustments to create the environment which is going to be the best support for them. Sure, I'm going backwards. Okay, so with the GEMS, the idea is that, Teepa wanted to come up with something that wasn't a number, that didn't automatically trigger the thought that one is better than the other. And also that didn't want to, create any type of anxiety or stress on the person living with dementia or the caregiver. Like if I'm saying, to your mom, oh, you're a stage 3 versus a stage 1, automatically it's going to trigger a response of like, oh no, I should be a stage 1, or is that good or is it bad? So alternatively, she came up with these gems. So 6 gems: sapphires, diamonds, emeralds, ambers, and rubies, and pearls. And the main thing is that, each person is valuable, just like these gemstones. I don't think there's any, in my opinion, any that are better than the other. They have different, factors and features to them, but they're all unique and they're all valuable. So I'm going to run through these. And again, if I go too fast, just let me know, or if you have any questions. The first one is sapphires. So sapphires is pretty much all of us. Everybody is a sapphire, depending on the day. You are still very much aware, still very independent. Sometimes we may have health issues, chronic health, medical conditions that can affect our behavior. If you have migraines, you may not be as cooperative as a day where you're feeling good. I feel like that with my toddler. Sometimes she's a sapphire and sometimes she's a diamond, kind of like where she is right now. I think she'd probably be a diamond, and we'll go over that a little bit more. So we typically have control over our behavior when we're Sapphire. We can follow written infill. We don't have any issues with any of our mental processes. Our memory is still pretty good. We might need a post-it note here and there, but overall, we can pretty much manage our lives as long as we don't get too stressed out. Alternatively, the next is the diamond. So this is where they can be really, really stubborn. And this is when we start to see more changes as far as some of the progression, some of the damage to the brain. They can still do personal care as long as it's in a place that is familiar. They might misplace things and can't find them later. And the dementia live training, we talk about amnesia. You start to forget things. This is where they can be. Diamonds are hard as a rock. One of the sharpest or strongest minerals on the earth. It's very difficult to break a diamond, almost impossible to break a diamond, and they can pretty much cut through everything. But they are still with it. They might have some deficiencies in some areas where they have a little trouble, but they still are pretty much there. This is where it gets difficult for family caregivers when you're starting to try and help them with their finances or help them manage their household. They're really resentful. They can be resentful to that and really be like, no, I got it. There's nothing wrong with me. I can handle it. And depending on where they are, they may be in that stage where they say, they're in denial. They may get the diagnosis of a dementia and they're like, I'm fine. I have my post-it notes. You messed up. I didn't forget that we had lunch today. You didn't remind me, or you weren't clear when you set that up. They are very habitual in staying into routine. And so the things that they enjoy is, what they can do, what makes them feel valued, and what is familiar to them. They really need that routine and those habits, daily habits that make them feel like they're still in control. And they want to feel like they know what's going on, even when things are starting to get a little bit hard for them to understand. So as I mentioned before, this is where the money management becomes a problem. Cooking, transportation and driving, start taking care of somebody else, taking care of their pet. And they may have difficulties when they have to move. If you move them to an assisted living, or if you move them at home with you, going to a doctor's visit, this is where it can be kind of difficult, where because they need that routine to help them feel like they know what's going on, they can really give you a lot of pushback and rigidity when it comes to, trying to provide their care. So, for diamonds, they might tell you the same thing over and over again. We talk about this with amnesia when we talk about the 5 A's. You have to just, keep going along with it. And as we tell family caregivers, if you need to take a break, you can go walk away and come back, or you can try to redirect them into doing something new after answering their question, of course, because we never want to ignore them. So you might need to put up maybe some signs or having some schedules that you can have highlighted or in a place that they can see, to kind of let them know, okay, this is what I'm doing today. Because again, they need that routine. And then of course, making sure, we always say to approach with a smile, even if this is the 10th time that you all have had the discussion about, what's for dinner or what's for lunch, this is where you try to make sure you keep that smile and keep that friendly look on your face. Place cards at table settings are really helpful if they forget where they sit, and then that way you don't have to have that battle of, especially if you have kids, that somebody's in their seat, or this isn't the right seat, or it's my seat. So there's a couple of different things that you can do. Some other things, these are just some other tips for talking and approaching diamonds, asking them for help rather than just telling them not to touch things because you feel like they're going to mess it up or they're not going to do it correctly. You know, this is where you ask them to help with the dishes or ask them to help fold clothes. And even if they don't do it correctly, you know, you allow them to still feel like they're valuable, and maybe you have to go behind them and fix it later. So we hand over hand, I won't go over that because that's a whole nother class, but this is just, you know, making sure that you are still maintaining that physical connection once you get permission, of course, because you never want to just walk up to somebody and touch them. But this is where they kind of need that, still need that comfort, and they still need that connection with you. That's going to be really important for them. The other ways, one is one of our main things, saying I'm sorry. If they get upset because you don't understand or they don't feel like you're being responsive enough, just saying, you know, I didn't mean to. Again, being friendly, not bossy, because that's when you're going to get that pushback. When you're helping with the finances, maybe you are, you know, their assistant rather than, Mom, I'm going to take this over, or Dad, I'm going to take this over because you're not doing it right. And then for you as a caregiver, being able to go with the flow and be okay with not being right all the time. So with the diamonds, and with all of the stages, we don't do the reality orientation. You know, if they say that they're on their way to work, we kind of just go along with it. We don't need to outrightly make up stories, but if there's no harm in going along with them, if they say they're getting ready to go to work and you say, okay, well, what would you like for lunch? And you just go along with it and redirect as you are able to. So some things that, you know, won't help, you know, saying, don't you remember, I told you yesterday, you know, trying to force them to give up the things that they've been used to doing all their lives, you know, forcing them to give up their checkbook or their bank card, and not giving them that ability to try to maintain their dependence. And of course, we never argue with anyone. So the next stage is the emeralds. So this is, as it gets a little more progressive, start to have quite a little bit more difficulty. These are those people living with dementia who always have to do something. Maybe they're always wandering around the house looking for things to do. Time traveling is common. And when we say time traveling, that means, you know, maybe they're remembering something from 10 years ago and that's where they are that day. So they might be in control, but they aren't able to execute the task correctly. So maybe they want to cook, but they're going to add sugar instead of salt. Like they're going to lose their ability to sequence. And again, like I said, they may do something repetitive. Maybe they'll sit and fold the same shirt over and over and over again. Or maybe they won't do anything just because that's just where they are at that time. So what they like doing is things that are familiar, things that they can see. This is the time when, you know, if they were a writer, that they may start writing on your work assignments if you're working from home, or maybe they're writing on the kids' homework, you know, because they see it. What they see is what they do. And this is where we say, okay, well, maybe put the homework or your work stuff away where they can't see it, out of sight, out of mind. And then they are really interested in having a job or purpose. And so just like with the diamonds, I mean, you'll see this through all of the stages. Everybody wants to feel valuable. Even if you're not living with a dementia, everybody wants to feel like they have something to contribute to the world. Whether it's something that you're really good at or you feel like people can benefit from. I think most people want to feel like they are loved, and they want to feel like they are valued, and they want to feel like they have something worthwhile to offer society. The other thing is being an adult. Sometimes when we're working with people who are caring for someone with dementia, we have a tendency to kind of make them our children, because we feel like we know better for them, because we don't feel like they can take care of themselves. So we feel like we need to become the parent. And we have to remember that even though they're dealing with these issues and they have this difficulty, they're still an adult, and we still have to treat them like that. But they may finish a task and then they want to do something else. Again, they want to keep going. They want to keep doing things. So this is the part where we may start seeing issues with showers. Maybe they say, you know, Mom, did you take a shower? Oh, I took my shower this morning, but she really hasn't. They, again, lose that ability to sequence, but they don't realize that they have done that. So, you know, they may put the clothes on incorrectly. They will be resistant, say, I don't need your help. I know how to do it, or I already did it. I already took my medicine. I already washed up. I already brushed my teeth. And they may say, like, I don't have time for that. I've got other things to do. I'm busy. I'm working. Even if they're not, and they feel like they need to be somewhere else. They're looking for things that are familiar to them, which may be in the past. Maybe they're looking to argue that big court case, and so that's all they're focused on, and they can't focus on the present and here and now. They may start to lose important things, which can cause some friction between the family members and their loved ones, because they start to accuse you of taking things. You stealing my money. You stole my insurance papers. You're stealing my stuff. You only come over here because you want to take my jewelry. They may start to do private things, public places. Maybe they're disrobing. Maybe they are doing some sexual behaviors, or, you know, using the restroom out in the plant, at the mall, because they have to go to the bathroom, and that sequence that, oh, I need to walk to the bathroom first and then use the restroom, is just not there. They may be really, really emotional, and they may start to not recognize family and friends, or think they know somebody, but they really don't. So some things to help them, you know, giving them things to do, highlighting areas with low clutter, you know, making sure it's organized. And if you don't, like I said, if you don't want them to touch something, putting it away, so that they don't see it, especially if it's something that's going to stress them out. And for, again, for all of them, you know, keeping that friendly face. If they do something incorrectly, maybe they're holding their toothbrush backwards, maybe they picked up a spoon instead of a fork, just, you know, being friendly and helping them switch that out. We always say the option of picking two when it comes to like getting dressed or choosing something to eat. You know, would you like tuna or chicken salad for lunch? Do you want the blue shirt or the red shirt? They still feel in control, and you're still able to help them get through their day and take care of the task. So you want to make sure that you're doing some active listening, you know, and having that engaging conversation with them, and not, if you know that it's not true, not just brushing it off and saying, she's just talking. This is just Mom. She's just talking right now. I've got things to focus on, and I'm just going to focus on this right now, and I'll worry about that later. And if you want to get their name, making sure you say their name first rather than just start talking, because they may be somewhere else. Maybe in 1967, for you know, and they're just may not be here in the present day the way that we are. So with the gyms, you know, again, sharing with them, you're going to see this across. So I'm not going to keep going over it for each and every single gym, but the same thing. Do we want to emphasize doing tasks with them and not to them? We want to help them to be as independent as possible, without making them feel like, they're incompetent or they can't do it, or that they become a burden. So again, with emeralds, you may see more resistance and more emotion at this point. And so sometimes you may need to back off. If they are really, really resistant and they really just don't want to take a shower right now, maybe you walk away, you go find something else to do. Maybe you take care of the dishes, or maybe you take a minute just to rest and back off and then try it again later. And then again, it's really kind of picking and choosing your battles. Is it really hurting anything if mom is taking the books off the bookshelf and putting them back on? Probably not. It's meaningful to her in that moment. And is it really worth the battle? Just let her stack the books. Maybe she was a librarian at some point. Maybe she was a teacher. You never know. And it's good to even create those little stations as well. If they were a writer, there's no harm in setting up a small little writing desk with all the pens and paper and things where they can sit and write and work in their mind. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so this is just some of the things that you can do to connect with them, some of which we already said. So if they mention something, oh, tell me about when you were writing that novel, or tell me about the class that you taught back in when you were a professor. You want to connect with them and let them know that you are still listening and that they are still important. So, and these are just some communication techniques, using gestures and pointing, being able to accept their emotions, empathy and validation. Again, that I'm sorry that you are upset, that you can't find your necklace. I know that's very upsetting for you. Is there anything that I can do to help? Some things not to do. And this, again, all of these things kind of go across all of the gems. Not asking them to do things. We becoming that parent, becoming their commander. I think most of us, we don't like to be told what we need to do. You need to do this. You need to eat. You need to take a shower. There's some times when we need to exercise, but we don't always feel like exercising. So, and I think we would all be pretty annoyed if there was somebody following us around all day telling us that we needed to go get on the treadmill. I think I would probably get a little frustrated with that myself. Again, treat them like a child, reacting instead of responding, and not going with the flow. Sometimes we need to just go with the flow and just decide, is this really something that I need to fight, or is it okay? So with the ambers, these are, again, the day that they wake up and nothing is familiar. They're back in the 7th grade. Maybe they're getting ready for an art project, and it sounds a little out there, but it can happen. And they're all about sensation. They can get easily overstimulated or understimulated. Maybe there's too much going on. Maybe there's kids running around and the TV is on and dinner is being made, and then you're asking them to go to the bathroom or go get ready for dinner, and it's just too much going on. They might be quiet and need that space, or in the alternative, they can be really boisterous and noisy. They lose that safety awareness, and this is where the danger comes in. Walking out into the middle of the street without looking both ways, certainly not driving, and putting something on the stove and starting a fire, things like that. Egocentric was everything kind of revolves around them. Lots of touching, picking up things. They might start to eat things that they're not supposed to eat, and just kind of touching everything. This is when I help with assisted living. These are those residents who would go into other people's rooms, or if you're taking care of mom and dad, dad is going into your son's room and touching all his toys and touching his Lego collection and messing up the set that he worked 10 hours to put together. And they do what they want to do. They're almost like my toddler who does what she wants to do, but regardless of whether we want her to do it or not. And if she doesn't want to do something, she makes it known that she does not want to do it. And even though we don't treat them like children, you can still see a lot of similarities between the two. And so they look for stuff to mess with, whether it's stuff in the kitchen cabinets or on a table. Maybe it's your paperwork. Maybe it's the figurines on in the display case. Maybe it's your kids' toys. Maybe they're in closets and in cabinets, and they're looking in everything. They follow people around who they think, oh, they look interesting. I'm just gonna follow you. And then they're really big into textures and shapes. And this is where those activity boards can be really helpful, where there's a lot of manipulatives on that board, zippers and buttons and stuff that crinkle. And I think it's the busy blankets, where there's lots of things to touch and feel with the different textures. This is good laundry, folding and sorting laundry, sorting different colored flowers or blocks or beads. They might take other people's things. They might start to pick with the kids or pick with you or follow you around, ask a lot of questions, and they may not like to be touched, which makes showers and baths really difficult. They may latch on to certain words and phrases or sounds and just repeat them all day long. So this is where we start to see some of the damage to the language portion of the brain, where they may not understand aphasia, where they may not understand either what we're saying to them, or are not able to communicate what they're feeling. So they may start to just do automatic replies, even though that's not what we're asking them. So may we say hello, and I say, hey, how are you? Your automatic response is going to be, hi, how are you? So they may start to just repeat things back to you without really understanding what they're saying. This, with the ambers, you need to go slow. That's the biggest thing with the ambers, taking your time, doing one step at a time. We talk about thinking about sequencing and all the steps that are involved in something is what we consider basic, like brushing your teeth, which requires you to stop, remember where the bathroom is, walk to the bathroom. That may or may not involve navigating steps. And so you need to know how to navigate the stairs 1 foot at a time, and how to step up, grab onto the banister, get to the bathroom, open the door, turn the light on, look for the toothpaste, look for the toothbrush. So there's so many things. So you will really have to take your time and break it down for them, whatever the task is, so that they can be successful. Substitution is good in this case, where they're taking something that maybe is not safe for them to have, or something that somebody else needs. You will try to present them with something that might be more interesting to them and swap it out with the old item and get it from them that way, rather than just taking it and saying, Mom, you can't have that. Dad, don't touch that. So at this point, we definitely want to still call their name and get their attention first before we move any further, because we don't want to talk to them and asking them to do things with us if we haven't even gotten their attention. That's going to get what I've always hear is like the refusals. Oh, they refuse to move. Well, how sure are you that they actually knew you were talking to them? Because they're somewhere else in time at this point. So they may hear you, but you may sound like background noise, just noise in the background to them. Giving positive feedback when they do accomplish the task, and listening to them, and using short, simple phrases. This is where it might help to show them at the same time that you're talking. If you're saying you want to brush your teeth, this is when you might say you want to brush your teeth, and it kind of gives them that visual cue, and a verbal cue, and even touch. You want to, are you ready to eat, or want to put lotion on your face, so that they know exactly what it is. It helps them to give them a better chance of understanding what it is you're trying to say. So again, step-by-step guidance, those activity blankets or busy blankets, and then using substitution and not subtraction when you're trying to get them to do something that's either safer or something, give back something that does not belong to them. And again, take your time. If you want them to eat, instead of eating across from them, maybe you sit next to them at the table and eat, and then they can copy what you're doing. Maybe you start off with some small talk first to capture their attention and get them focused on you, and engaging them to get started with an activity that way, rather than just saying, Mom, time to use the restroom. Maybe so, oh, Mom, that's a nice outfit you have on today, and go from there. Hey, you wanna let's go get changed. And you can, sometimes that is more successful rather than you just stating let's go do something. Again, giving them too many words. This goes back to our idea of keeping it simple and not overcomplicating it. We talk about how the ability to process words becomes more difficult. It takes them longer to process what we're saying and to understand the meaning of those words. We also don't want to get into their space. Certainly not getting loud and raising our voices and doing for things for them and not with them, and not including them in the care process. So the next stage is rubies. They may not say much, but they might start to sing. Mary, you might have to help me because now I can't think of the Memory and Music video, Alive Inside, that shows someone living with a dementia who everyone thought had no verbal skills until you turned on music. They are really in tune to rhythm, and musical things of that nature. So they may lose the fine motor skills, but they might still rock and sing and sway. This is when we'll start to see some issues with sleeping at night, because their circadian rhythms get messed up, and they may be up all night and sleep all day or sleep at all times. You may start to see some changes in the way that they eat. Maybe they start eating less, maybe they start asking for more food, and they tend to want to keep moving as well, unless they're sleeping. So they may start to walk laps around the house. They may not say anything, they may just want to walk. Definitely they lose, we talk about the peripheral vision, where as dementia progresses, it pretty much goes down to like the tunnel vision, and that becomes their field of vision, and that's all they see, and they don't see anything else that's going on around them. And then major sensory changes. Might be where you might just see some agnosia, where they start to not recognize some of the signs that signals that they're receiving from their bodies. May see more accidents at this point, because they don't recognize the urge to go to the bathroom. maybe they don't have some medical emergencies because they don't recognize the sign of a heart attack or a stroke. And maybe they've lost the ability to communicate what they're feeling. Excuse me. So they either want to be really close to you and be your shadow, or they want their own space. They may start to hit and things because, again, they are really focused on sensory. So they want to touch and push and carry and squeeze. And that may or may not be what we would consider appropriate. So you might find them grabbing and pinching things that you really don't want them to pinch on, especially if you're out in public. And they may, again, start to chew on things and eat things that they really shouldn't. And you'll see a lot of the rhythmic movements. So we may see some falls here. Again, this goes along with the apraxia. As they lose that connection between the brain and their muscles, they may start walking and lose that connection and have a fall. And again, shadowing, not staying and not sitting still for meals. It might be really hard to get them to sit down at a table and eat dinner with everyone because they're so busy trying to walk around. So for rubies, you want to demonstrate what you want them to do. And especially for meal times and even for showers, showing it on yourself first. Maybe you put the water on your arm or the soap on your arm. Maybe you sit with them and eat breakfast or eat lunch. And again, staying in their visual field, which is much smaller, so between 12 to 18 inches away, and offering your hand. And again, having that friendly smile on your face. Because even though they may not understand what you're saying, they do understand still that nonverbal communication, and they understand how you are making them feel. So you might want to use a song to connect. And again, keeping it simple. You'll find that maybe they don't have any other language, but they remember Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and they'll sing it with you. You never know. So again, you want to take your time and showing them what you're about to do, what you're about to touch, and then doing the movement. So, maybe you need to get them out of their pajamas. So you touch their arm first and you let them know what you're doing, and then you take their arm out of the sleeve rather than just taking their arm and pulling the shirt off. And again, with rubies, slowing down even more. So, you're going to move with them and then guide them where you want them to go. And again, using music and rhythm to help them move or get them to stop move, and using a lot of cueing, visual and physical cues to help them be successful. So what we don't want to do is touch them too quickly. Like, we don't want to just walk up on them and start doing things. We want to stand back a little bit, get their attention. What we call this in positive approach to care is a positive physical approach, where you get that visual regard first and that make that eye contact with them so you know that they are paying attention to you, and then moving in. We want to still make sure we're talking with them and talking to them, and not just going about our tasks because we're so focused on what we do that they just become a chore. And that goes right up back along with doing with them and not for them or to them. So you should be talking to them. It could be about anything, something that they enjoy, even if they're not going to respond. Sometimes just the sound of your voice is comforting to them and can help them relax and release a lot of that anxiety. Because just imagine waking up every morning and not knowing where you are or understanding what's going on. You see a lot of stuff, you don't know what it is. It can be overwhelming, but they may recognize your voice and they may find comfort in your voice. So the last gem is the pearl. And the pearls would be where most other stages would, or theories would consider this the end stage. Pearls often can get overlooked because we look at it, or a lot of times people look at it as like this is the point where they're gone, but they're not gone. They're still there. They may be hidden, just like pearls are, hidden deep in the ocean inside the clamshells. And if you get them in the right place or in the right environment, you may get the clam to open up and show the beautiful pearl that is inside. So they might be bed bound. They might be frequently leaning over. They may sleep a lot. They might start to moan or cry, especially if they're distressed. And it can be difficult to calm them down when they're having a rough day because it's hard for us to connect with them. They do recognize familiar from unfamiliar, and they have some primitive reflexes. So this is where if you just reach out and touch them without giving them any warning, they're going to automatically reach out and hit. This is kind of the end as the dementia progresses. The systems of the body are starting to fail, and they start to lose their connection between themselves and the world. So for pearls, they want warmth and comfort. I think everybody can think of, a time when you didn't feel well or you were afraid or anything like that, and just having the comfort of your mom or the comfort of a spouse or a loved one, it made it easier. So they like pleasant smells, things that, taste good, warmth and comfort, and then those familiar sounds and voices. So maybe this is where your music could come in. If you know that they have a favorite artist, maybe you have that artist playing in their room, something that will, excuse me, give them some comfort. So you might not see much from them. They may not talk much. They may start to have some issues with their skin and hygiene and lose their weight. They may not eat or drink and be able to sit up anymore. They may make a lot of vocalizations, but it'll be difficult for you to tell exactly what they need. Some primitive reflexes to consider with the pearls, like I mentioned, the startle reflex, the grasp. If you touch their palm of their hand, they might hold it really hard and not let you go. The sucking reflex, the rooting reflex, bite reflex. So it's just, brushing your teeth, that's something to be aware of, or even feeding. And then if they are dealing with retracted arms, or like because of their muscles not being used, them pulling away from you trying to help them stretch. So this is just some of the typical positioning of someone who is in the pearl stage, and some of the reasons why. I see we only have about 10 minutes left, so I want to give people time to ask questions, so I'm not going to go too far into this. So just putting them in that supportive position. We talk about getting down to their level, so not standing over them, but being at their eye level. If that means sitting in a chair next to them or kneeling down in front of them, bringing up the light slow and not just turning on a bright light in the room so it doesn't startle them and it's not such a sharp change for them. Keeping a calm voice, rhythm, maybe you're singing or humming, short phrases that they're familiar with. And if they don't want to hear anything, knowing that it's okay to be silent and just be in the moment. So using firm and gentle touch. Once you're connected with them, stay, like if you have a hand on their shoulder while you're feeding them, keeping that hand there the entire time. In other ways, again, going slow, using that calm voice, getting everything that you need for a task before you start. You don't want to be walking back and forth, making sure that the bathroom is warm, before you start to wash them up. Maybe you get a little mini heater that you can have on, so that you can keep the bathroom at a warm temperature, which makes the showers more comfortable for them. And making sure you take good care of their skin. So the bad, well, I don't like saying bad, but some of the things that we don't want to try to avoid when we're caring for pearls is hurrying to get stuff done quickly. I mean, I know we have busy schedules, there's a lot that's going on, and sometimes we really have to stop and make ourselves slow down and take our time. And then just being aware of where they are as far as their movement and their behaviors, and making sure that we are changing the way that we interact with them to accommodate for that. And again, not focusing on the relationship and just focusing on the task. You don't want them to just become something to check off our to-do list. It's still our family member. And even though being a caregiver is really hard and can be really draining, we have to be careful that we don't forget that they are still our loved ones, and they do still have value, even if they can't communicate with us in the same way that they used to. They are still loved, and they are still valued. So just to wrap this up really quick, I'm going to run through this because a lot of this we already talked about. Making sure you get them in their visual field, doing with them and not to them, keeping your phrases simple and short, asking for their help rather than telling them, maybe asking them to try, breaking a step down, a single step at a time, using some visual cues with verbal cues. And again, just being mindful of what you're doing, taking your time, wait, give them time to process, and slow down. Can't say that enough. So if what you're doing is not working, we want to stop. We're going to take a second and back up, think about what we're doing, and try to come back again and try it in a different way. And then this is really important. We can't take care of others if we don't take care of ourselves. So that's number one. And then it comes with understanding the disease and knowing how it works. This is where it becomes really important to get a formal diagnosis, work with your doctor to find out what type of dementia, what those symptoms look like, and how it looks as it progresses, because it makes it easier for you to respond when you see a change in behavior. And then utilizing local resources like the Department of Aging and the caregiver program to get connected to workshops like this and others. And then set limits for yourself. Know what you can handle and what you can't, and know when you need to take a break. And so I'm going to end there. I almost made it through. I've got like 5 minutes left. I'm willing to stay on a little bit longer if we do have a lot of questions. But I do thank you all for taking this time to attend this session. I hope it was helpful for you. It's a little bit different. It's normally way more interactive, but that's kind of hard to do. The demonstrations and the team partner activities when we're virtual. So thank you all for having me. And Mary, I don't know if there's any questions.
Don't have anything yet. Let's give folks a minute to, maybe type something in if they have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Jen. I know you've had some late nights and busy days with everything that's going on at the department right now. So I really appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Oh, no problem.
Okay. And we have a thank you for you from the audience.
Thank you.
And a lot of thank yous from the audience. So I'm gonna put a plug in right now. Also, as Jen was talking, there's other programs at the department. For those of you that haven't participated in the Dementia Live program, I would suggest that might be something you would like to do. It partners very well with the information that Jen gave tonight. And it gives you kind of an inside out view of dementia. So Jen, here's a question for you. Is it common for someone to have characteristics from one GEM, but also some from the next GEM? Is this the way that they transition from one to the next?
Yes, that's a great question. And that is actually one of the main points with the GEM theory, is that depending on the day, you may see that, you know, dad is an amber. Maybe he's stuck in that moment of time and he's really not there. But then he may have another day where he's sapphire and he's with it. I mean, we hear it all the time, like mom was able to do it yesterday, but she's not able to do it today. So yes, it is a fluid change, and you can go run through all 6 of the stages at any time, because it ebbs and flows. So yes.
So I just want to let folks know that Jen will get me the PowerPoint tomorrow, and I will send that out to the participants. Again, Jen, we have more thank yous. So again, we appreciate it. And I thank all of you for being here tonight. I hope that you join us on some of our other workshops that are coming up, and pay attention to the monthly newsletters that you get through email, because they have a lot of information about our upcoming programs. So again, thank you, everyone.